We're always on the lookout for settings in games that some people might find useful when playing. In this video, we'll be looking at Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and go through the button inputs and settings related to these, such as controller remapping and also the motor accessibility of the game, such as the auto glide and hover boot auto pump options. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is an action-adventure platformer game that's available on the PS5. You play as several characters including Ratchet, Clank, Rivet and Kit, who have to save the galaxy by stopping multiple dimensions from collapsing in on one another by defeating Dr Nefarious. This footage has been captured directly off a PS5 console. We will first go through the default controls. Left stick moves your character and right stick moves the camera. Cross will make your character jump. Pressing cross twice will double jump. Holding down cross after jumping in the air will make your character glide. Square performs your melee attack. Holding triangle will open up the weapon wheel. Pressing L1 and R1 will change to another weapon wheel loadout when you acquire more than 8 weapons. Circle will act as your phantom dash once you acquire it. Holding L2 will aim your weapon, and R2 will fire it. Depending on the weapon you have, you will have to either press or hold down R2. Pressing L1 will pull you through a rift tether, and holding R1 will use your swing shot. Holding R1 will activate your hover boots once you acquire them. L3 will make your character sprint. R3 shows your current objective. By default, the D-pad directions can act as weapon quick select, but can be remapped to act as shortcuts for actions that require either simultaneous button presses or a sequence of button presses. We will discuss this more later in the video. Touchpad will open up your map. Before you start the game, you have to choose difficulty, from Rookie Explorer to Renegade Legend. What separates Rookie Explorer from the rest of the difficulties is that your character cannot take damage. You can change difficulty of the game at any time by going into the game submenu found in Settings. There are various settings in the game that can be turned on to make the game easier for some players. There are several toggle options available that you can change so that you can complete actions with a single press rather than holding down a button. The toggle options include aim mode, weapon wheel mode, hover boot mode, swing mode, speedle boost mode, and fire mode. An icon will show up in the bottom right corner of the screen to inform you that the toggle option is currently being used, with the exception of weapon wheel mode. Fire mode is how your weapon fires, and the type of button input depends on the weapon you're using, whether this be a single press or a button hold. For example, the blast pistol by default can be fired by holding down R2. The firing of this weapon can be changed to a toggle, so that a single press of R2 will continuously fire, and pressing R2 again will stop firing. For some weapons that require a single press to fire a single time, such as the drill pack, this can be changed to either hold or toggle. Note that some slow firing low ammo weapons, such as the Shatter Blast, will remain a single press to fire a single time and cannot be fired with a hold or a toggle. Aim Assist automatically adjusts the aiming reticle to keep the target in the center of the screen. When this is set to strong, the adjustment is increased. This means having to use the right stick less often. Auto Aim turns the camera towards the nearest enemy when firing. Lock On automatically targets and locks onto an enemy when aiming. By changing melee mode to combo, you can swing your melee weapon 3 times with a single press rather than once by default. By turning off-screen ledge guard to always on, it will prevent your character from falling off a ledge that is off-screen. Holding down cross after jumping in the air will make your character glide. By switching on auto glide, your character automatically glides when your character jumps in the air, therefore reducing the need to hold down cross. To reach max speed with the hover boots, you first activate them by holding L1 and alternate between pressing L2 and R2. By turning on hover boot auto pump, holding L1 will automatically reach max speed when using hover boots, therefore reducing the need for L2 and R2. Flight Assist automatically levels out during flight sequences. This means having to control the right stick less often. Turning on Grind Assist will slow down time when nearing a hazard during grinding sequences, giving you more time to react. You can turn on all motor accessibility settings at once by going into Presets found in the Accessibility Settings menu. You can see what settings are turned on when the preset is set to on. Simplified Traversal maps all traversal actions, including Rift Tether, Swing Shot, Phantom Dash and Hover Boots, to the circle button. Directional button movement uses the D-pad directions to move rather than left stick. By turning this on, you will be unable to access the shortcuts function. The shortcuts option allows you to apply up to 4 shortcuts, which can be accessed by pressing D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, and D-pad right. If you struggle to perform an action that requires either simultaneous button presses or a sequence of button presses, you may find it easier to map it as a shortcut instead. For example, to throw your melee weapon, you need to hold down L2 and then press square. You can map this action as a shortcut so that a single press will perform the action instead. Other actions you can map as a shortcut include Weapon Quick Select, Melee Combo, Melee Slam, and Auto Glide. You can also assign various game speeds as shortcuts, so you can slow down the game by 30%, 50%, or 70%. An icon will appear in the bottom right corner of the screen to inform you that the game speed has been changed. However, if you turn on the directional movement button option, the shortcut will become unavailable. You can invert the up, down and left, right camera movements. For default up and down movements, pushing the right stick up will move the camera up, and pushing down will move the camera down. In the camera menu, turning on invert up, down swaps these movements around. So pushing up will move it down, and pushing down will move it up. By default, moving the right stick to the left moves it left, and to the right moves it right. Turning on invert left right swaps these movements around, so that the moving the right stick to the left will move the camera right, and pushing it to the right will move it left. You can also invert the camera movements for flight sequences. Flight stick allows you to choose between the left and right stick for flight controls. You can change the sensitivity of the camera movement. 0 is the least sensitive, and 10 is the most sensitive. You can also change the sensitivity for aim mode. Camera follow automatically rotates the camera behind your character whilst moving. Setting this to fast moves the camera more quickly. The game features some controller schemes that may be useful if you prefer the main buttons to be mapped to either the left side or the right side of the controller. You can choose between a left bias, right bias, or create your own custom controller scheme. In Custom 1 and Custom 2, all of the button and trigger controls can be remapped to other buttons and triggers used in gameplay to create a custom controller layout. You also have the option to swap the stick functions over. However, you cannot remap the actions to joystick directions, the touchpad, or the options button. Button prompts will appear to reflect the button changes, such as interacting with objects. We hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, please get in touch with Special Effect.